All right, so let's talk today about species, races, uh, kind of the labels around them and that sort of thing. The part of the thing that we have in our culture is that we like to label things, and labels create stereotypes and that sort of thing. So as you're going on this journey, one of the things you're going to learn is that the labels we have for ET races are actually quite wrong. Um, One of the examples I give for this is we have this mythology of ET races, Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lyrans. We have very, and if you hear something in the background, my cat's playing with the window. Um, we have very kind of fixed likenesses that have been disseminated through the mythology of what these species are. For example, the Pleiadians are the ones that I use quite often because they're the typical human-looking versions of ETs with blonde hair, the Nordic kind of like beings with the blue, often portrayed with blue suits, um, uniforms, and they've been around for quite a long time. At least the 70s, I think, is probably. I mean, they've probably been here forever, but um, the mythology, I think, starts back in the 70s for more recent years. And so this stereotype is there because it of the storytelling around, this group, these are the Pleiadians. And the way I say it, I'm like, okay, well, we're humans on Earth. We have a vast variety of wildlife, of other animals, of highly intelligent animals, octopuses, elephants, um, chimpanzees, gorillas, all these different things. The only reason they aren't as technologically evolved is because, like the octopus only lives a year, so it doesn't have time to do that. The other beings, just we've excelled over them, as far as gorillas and chimpanzees and that sort of thing go. Elephants don't have fingers or thumbs, cats don't have thumbs, type of thing. uh, Biological differences allow us to be the main primary race. But if you take this to other planets and you understand that other planets have just as much of a diversity, if not more, because they've been evolving for longer than Earth. So the diversity is far more complex, which means that on those other planets, maybe there's a version of Earth out there where the octopus does live longer than a year, and the elephants do have hands and all this other stuff. So we have Pleiadians, for example, that everybody has the Nordic view, the white skinned, blonde haired peoples, but I rarely connect to those people. Occasionally through a reading, I've only had one or two come through to me in that form, and they are beautiful people. But those that I connect with, I've had are more tribal in nature, and they're always reminding me. Remember, the Pleiades are 7 stars with multiple planetary systems around them, multiple beings, and you have one group that is highly technologically advanced traveling around that people are saying, oh, these are Pleiadians. And yeah, that's not wrong. They are from the Pleiades, but they are not the representation of the whole Pleiadian star systems, type of thing. You have tribal groups that have symbiotic natures with plants and don't use a lot of technology. You have another group who is I would describe them as more of a Cuban Haitian look to them. They are very, very dark skinned, but they have blue eyes and slits in their eyes, almost like a cat or a lizard type of thing. Another beautiful group of people. You have refugees from planets living in the Pleiades. I know there are some Lyrans living in those spaces, and that type of thing. And Lyrans, for those that don't know, are the cat beings, those that look like humanoids with lion heads. And again, that's another stereotype, because when people say Lyran, there's always a depiction of them as this big, strong warrior body with a lion head. And I've seen them to where they look very human, but their features, they have like flat noses. They still have the cat ears, cat eye type things, but they look far more human. So they can look different, not like the stereotypes that we create with our visual likenesses in mythology. Arcturians are another good example. Arcturians are a very technological race, very tall, blue. Bluish purple is the typical way that people perceive them and draw them. And I never resonated with this idea where people would be like, oh, I met an Arcturian and they were a light being. And it was always that they were a light being, an energetic light being. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense to me because I physically met them. I've met them where they've held my hand before. And I'm like, I don't understand why people are having these experiences, and it's always, oh, they're light beings, they're energy, they're just energy, that's it. And what I realized is over time I met many Arcturians. I met some that do fit the stereotypical very tall robed figures with a long head coming back, blue and purple and big eyes type of thing. But I've met other ones that have more squat heads that come out this way, not as much of a prolonged head in the back, like a bubble maybe, but not prolonged. Very tall and very different personalities, very different likenesses, different energies. And that sort of thing. I was like, okay, what's going on? So I did an activation one day, and when I did the activation, I was like, this is interesting. They layered it from physical to energetic. So there was an that activation. There's which you can find on my website. There's an Arcturian activation and meditation under the blog. There's an area for the higher energy beings that are light beings that are pure energy, and there's an area for kind of the middle ground beings who are like quasi-physical, I guess is the word you would use, and there's an area for physical Arcturians, and I've met them all in all ranges. And so we have these stereotypes of Arcturians that actually aren't the case, because Arcturus, again, Arcturus is a star with planets around it, many evolutions of beings, just like the Earth. The Earth has many evolutions of beings, and when we think about the Earth and the dimensionality of the Earth, not only do we have to consider the physical life on Earth, we have to consider the higher dimensional life on Earth. The Earth is a ball of consciousness with many layers, many dimensions, sky dimensions, inner Earth dimensions, all this. And so when you start considering all those beings, the stereotypes we have when we label them as this is an Arcturian, this is a Lyran, this is a Pleiadian, etc., etc., it's not actually the case. It's something that it's a good guide that you can say, oh, this looks like an Arcturian. That's probably the case. This looks like a Zeta Reticulan. That's another one. Zeta Reticulans, I've seen so many different types of Zeta Reticulans, so many hybrid beings, from short beings to big beings, physical, non-physical, quasi-physical, hybrids with multiple eyes. Like that race is billions of years old, and they are just a being will come and they'll be like, I'm a Zeta Reticulan, but they'll be far different from others. Like it's an amazing thing that you can't. There's no singular likeness because there's so much diversity. The label, the whole point of this is the label, the stereotype, the race name, the species name. Those are all human things that you can't really say, well, this is an Arcturian because they look like this. And that's my point. When you're working with galactics and other beings, don't make an assumption that they are XYZ. You can say, kind of like what I do in my readings, is if they don't tell me, I will be like, they are Zeta-like or Arcturian-like in my descriptions, because I try not to define them as that, but it helps when people have that who have that stereotype for me to be like, they have that type of likeness and energy to them, but I don't know if that's who they actually are. There are some Lyrans living in the Pleiades, like I said, refugees from different spaces, who would probably now identify as Pleiadian. It's the same thing as America. Immigrants came to America. They don't call themselves by the place they came from typically. If you typically ask them, who are you? They're like, we're American, type of thing. You know, if somebody comes from China or Finland or Africa or Australia, wherever it is, and the family is rooted here and they came 100 years ago, the family doesn't continue. They might identify like ancestrally as that, which is part of this thing, but they don't necessarily identify in that way individually. Now you'd ask them and be like, oh, I'm American. So it's the same thing as something saying Pleiadian, Arcturian, all this. It's just a origin. It's an origin for where they come from, essentially. Like, I'm American, that's my origin, but my roots and genes are heavily European in some other places, Native, Indigenous American, European, mostly European from what I know of. And so my origin is that's my ancestry. And the point is, that's my ancestry. My origin is America. So when you hear something say like, oh, I'm Arcturian, oftentimes it's a label of origin for us to identify them with, as time and space, that sort of thing. So let me know if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Grateful for each and every one of you. Love you all.